welcome to our executive lunch and learn today. I'm so excited to talk about values and vision in a mentoring relationship. And what's fascinating is, as you all probably have done this with your teams, if you've created a vision, you've created value systems, you've got things that you probably follow as a company. But we've got a guest speaker here today. Her name's Andrea. She is an expert in just kind of helping us hone in on our values and our vision, and really how we can leverage that in a mentoring relationship. Because I think all relationships, all encounters, all ways that we decide to show up for a given day can absolutely be defined by the values we've set for ourselves. Andrea is the president of HRD Advisory Group, where she has gained extensive experience focusing on the growth and development of individuals, work teams, and leaders. Andrea, thanks for being here.
Hey, Garrett, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. And values and vision, there's nothing more important for leaders to talk about. So I'm glad to connect with your audience today.
Absolutely. So what are values?
I think of values as those non-negotiables. If you're, in the midst of challenging situations, what's the foundation that you go to lead you through? What's the quick litmus test for, am I showing up in an authentic way that represents who I am? Wherever you go, there you are, and there your values are. So those non-negotiables. When the going gets tough, what will you not compromise? That's how I think about core values.
Yeah, but I'd love to dive deeper into that, because I think when the going gets tough, what are the things that maybe define us through that? I guess, how can we maybe clarify that with a mentor in a mentoring relationship with our other executive mentor? How can we go about kind of defining that? And I want to maybe challenge the executives watching this, because I think what oftentimes we default to is like our corporate core values, and that can be different from our personal core values. Is that correct?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think of an organizational value set as shared values that everyone in the organization is aligned to. Yeah, but as a leader, each leader has unique gifts and talents and strengths that he or she brings, and those could show up in their values that are unique to who they are and the value that they bring to relationships and the people that they're leading. So I'd love to share a tool. You started the conversation, Garrett, with the combination of values and vision. And I know we're talking about those in a mentoring relationship, but I want to share a tool that provides good context around why values and vision are so important. So maybe I'll just go big picture. I'll share a vision that I have around this values and vision work, and then we can break it down to mentoring. How does that sound?
Sounds great. I look forward to it.
So we know that every day leaders are making decisions, and a lot of the time in the very fast-paced, busy world in which we live, we are reacting to whatever is in front of us. Garrett, would you agree with that? Do you see leaders falling into that trap?
Absolutely. I fall into that trap. I think it happens all the time. I'd like to be a little more intentional about driving where the day goes, but definitely part of my job is putting out fires and just kind of reacting to what gets thrown at me, and how much it affects not only my mental space, but my emotional and physical space, because that's all part of my daily world. So I'm with you on that 100%.
So we get that. That is relatable. No doubt anyone listening to this can relate to that. So it's important to have a system or a rhythm in place to keep the vision and the values in front of us, to keep those things top of mind. So I call this tool that I'm going to share, I call it the leadership focus tool. Can you see that? Am I sharing?
You are not currently sharing.
I'm not. Share screen. Okay, there it is. Perfect. Now I'm sharing.
Now I can see your screen.
I call this the leadership focus tool because in my experience, it's a great way to focus our energy, the way we spend our time, our attention. So this is just the template. I have this binder that I carry with me everywhere. And it's got, so this is a weekly tool that I use. And you can see at the top of the visual, it's the vision and the values. And sometimes people get wonky around nomenclature. You could think of your vision as your big picture priorities, your BHAGs. Sometimes people, big, hairy, audacious goals. And again, your values are those non-negotiables, who you are as a leader, your guiding principles. And by starting your week with those things, you've got something to filter everything you do through something that's so uplifting, that's so personal, that's so powerful. It's a grounding force. It provides the vision, and the values provide this immovable quality. It is a tough time right now for a lot of leaders. And we need something, because so much of life is so uncertain. We need something to hang our hat on. Vision and values provide us with something to hang our hat on. Same thing in a mentoring relationship. When challenges pop up, what are we going to go back to? What are we going to default to? If we've not had a conversation about the direction that we're headed and what it is that we really believe in and what's important to us, then conversations can feel shallow or lack the depth that we really want to have to move those relationships forward. So this tool is a way then to start your week with, okay, given my big picture priorities and those things that I most value, what are the 3 things that I'm going to do this week? And then every day, the same process. You can ask yourself, what are the 3 things I'm going to do today to accomplish my top 3 priorities for the week? And you can see at the bottom of the page, because one of my values is joy, this provides levity and focus for me to be able to just take some time to think about, what am I really grateful for today? What is the abundance in my life that I want to express appreciation for? So this is a tool that I've been using for many years, and it has been a game changer. It's the difference between leading by default and leading by design. This is a very intentional way to lead what you choose to do every day.
I love this. This is really cool. I love that you incorporate gratitude in this assessment, because I think gratitude is so critical, because when you're grateful, the only feeling you can feel is happy. And that's how we want to feel. Like, we do this work, whether we're the CEO of our company or we're an executive for our company, like, we do the work that we do to ultimately garner more happiness in our life. And the way that we can achieve that is through one way we can achieve that is through gratitude. And I find gratitude to be a very effective tool for that. The other thing I do that I think kind of aligns with this is, I love to learn your thoughts on this, Andrea. I every week will outline 3 feelings I want to feel this week. How do I want to feel this week? What are the 3 feelings I want to feel? And I intentionally set that as like, okay, I want to feel like I want to feel joy. I want to feel like I'm a connector, and I want to feel that I am not necessarily productive, but I'm going above and beyond, perhaps. Maybe that's a feeling that I've got. But by setting that feeling, it sounds very much in line with the values and the vision of kind of what you've laid out there.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, what a great visionary strategy that is. And that's the really cool thing about vision, is we can look at it from the big macro. What is the vision for my life? What is the vision for my organization? What is my vision for my team? All the way down to, what is my vision for today? What is my vision for this interaction? What is my vision for this mentoring relationship? I mean, there's so much power in shaping it, because we get to choose. We get to choose what we make of everything that we experience, based on how we talk about it, based on how we perceive it. And so think about the power in a mentoring relationship of taking time up front to shape it together. Think about the connection and the bond that comes with that.
How can we be more intentional about sticking to our values? If maybe we don't have the sheet that you've got, is there an alternative solution that maybe we could leverage, either with our mentor or just maybe on a personal basis, whether it be our own sheet? Is there almost like a kind of like a Cliff Notes version of our way of holding ourselves accountable to our values?
Yeah, I think just the mentor asking the conversation, how did your values play out in this situation?
I love that. And how can we hold ourselves accountable in a mentoring relationship? How can we hold our mentor accountable to the values that maybe we didn't stick to them or didn't hit them? How can we also work on being self-aware? How can we be focused on how can we be focused on, I guess what I'm trying to say is being honest with ourselves and being honest with our mentor when maybe we haven't hit the values that we like to hit for this week or for this day. How can we know that we're not there, and how can we be okay with being honest with ourselves?
Such an important question. Think about how many times we've been in conversations when something felt off. We can all relate to that feeling of something feeling off, but we blow it off. We think, oh, it's not important. It's me. Acknowledge that in a mentoring relationship. Think about how much integrity there is in having the courage to say, something feels off here. Can we talk about this? Being willing to have a tough conversation. Now, if you've established shared values up front, or you've talked about your values, you could use that language. Hey, let's go back to those things we value here. Because, a lot of times when something feels off, it's because we're not showing up in a way that's consistent with who we are. Early in my career, there was a guy that I worked with who used humor in his presentations. He was naturally a really funny guy. And he and I were doing a lot of presenting together, and I noticed that he would very quickly engage the audience because of his humor. And I wanted to engage the audience like that. So what did I do? I tried to be funnier. But do you know what happens when someone who's not naturally very funny tries to be funny?
What happened?
It wasn't very funny. It was so awkward and so weird because I wasn't being true to who I was. The thing about my 5 values, and the words are less important than what they mean to the leader, but abundance, empowerment, service, integrity, and joy. And what's really cool about those things is they're so core to who I am that I don't ever have to try to be those things. I'm never going to be everything to all people, but I can always be more abundant, empowering, service-oriented, joyful, integrity filled. That gives me a marker, and it's who I am. So, instead of trying to be funnier, Andrea, be more joy filled, have more integrity in the tough moments, be more empowering. See what I mean? It's going deeper into the recesses of who we are and accessing those parts of ourselves.
I totally see what you mean. I'm in a mentoring relationship right now with another CEO, and I found myself, when I was listening to his values, almost kind of adjusting mine while listening to it, and potentially not staying true to my own values, and realizing oh crap, am I aligning to what he's saying, or am I stating these things essentially as what my values are? And even though they may not necessarily coincide, is that okay? I think that's something that's pretty natural to do. But I think it's also natural as an executive to say why your values are your values and why they're not the values of your mentor. But I think as an executive, we need to be okay with understanding that and saying, hey, it's cool that we have a differing value. It's okay. It's all right that they don't necessarily align.
Absolutely. The key is that we understand each other, we respect each other, and there's an interesting exercise I take leaders through after they've gone through the process of exploring their personal values. I always love putting leaders into small groups and asking them to share, because every single time, the hundreds of times I facilitated that, there is always overlap in some areas, always overlap, because there are these universal truths that we all gravitate towards. There's also diversity within the value set. And so both of those are really important, that we've got some things that we share in common, and we have some uniqueness that we bring to the relationship. Think about the power in that in a mentoring relationship. The things we share and the things that we bring to really strengthen the relationship in different ways.
So what is the difference between values and vision?
So I think of values as who you are. I think of vision as where you're going. And in vision, it's interesting. People, again, I get wonky around that word because it feels really big. It feels really uncertain. And leaders shape the future. So the root of the word lead is to go, to guide, to travel. So think about, inherent in that is this vision. It's shaping the future. And vision is just a way to name the future. And not getting so tied to the outcome, but being courageous enough to say, this is what we aspire to. We don't know what life will bring. So I do as a part of my vision process every year, I do a vision board that's hanging in my closet. And I had someone ask me recently, like, oh, I bet you're so disappointed when you look at your board. And I'm like, well, no, it's awesome. Like, those are awesome visions. They haven't come to fruition yet. A lot of that may not in 2020, but I'm going to Pune, India. I'm going to Dublin, Ireland. Both of those things are on my vision board. I have no doubt one day I will be in those countries. It's not going to be this year, likely, and who knows, it may. But it's not about timing necessarily, or when, or getting all rigid about it. It's being light about it and being excited about the possibilities. That's what a vision is.
That's interesting. I like that perspective. I think oftentimes as leaders, maybe just because we've had just shit kicked in our face for so many times, that maybe we don't have as much, I guess, levity around this concept of creating a vision for ourselves, because we've had enough doses of reality just come smacking us right in the face. How can we combat this? How can we find that thing that keeps us kind of aspiring forward beyond just serving shareholders? How can we translate that into it serving ourselves and living the life we'd like to live beyond just the work components of life?
Yeah, so the vision, there's a vision template that I use. It actually comes from a book called Breaking the Rules: Removing the Obstacles to High Performance. It's an awesome book. When I went through my coaching certification, it was a 9-month process. And there were 3 books we had to read, and that was one of them. So I always say, like, this is a pretty important book in my life. I really had to study it, and I did an exam on it, wrote an article around it. But essentially, the author says, like, think about the vision for your life holistically and go out 10 years, because that's where obstacles no longer exist. Isn't that interesting? So he's done some research around most people. And the reason that the goals, a lot of like short-term goals fail, is because they're obstacle oriented. I want to lose weight because I don't feel good about how I look today. But think about all the obstacles in that. If you go out 10 years, anything is possible. Isn't that cool? And so he provides categories. And so career is only one of them. Social is one. Family is one. Spiritual is one. Financial is one. And social. Did I say social? I don't know.
Yeah.
But you get the sense, right? It's much broader than the work that I do. It's the relationships I have in my life that are most important. And so all of that holistically, and it's fun to think about. So 10 years down the road, not only like what will my, the work that I'm doing, what will that look like, but what about my family, the relationships with my kids? Think about 10 years, your relationships with your kids. What will those look like? How fun is that to dream about the possibilities? Because then you can back it up and say, what do I need to start doing today to help me get there?
That's cool. I like that. It makes me think of, this is an airplane metaphor, but it makes you think about like the trajectory of an airplane. Like a small, subtle route adjustment at the very beginning of your flight can have a massive impact on where you end up. Whereas the later on you make that adjustment, the less change you're going to see happen based on the time that you get to wherever your end destination is. So the moral is, if you determine and you set these out 10 years in advance, anything is possible. Anything can be possible, whether you want to travel to a certain area of the world, or you want to accomplish this business milestone, you want to accomplish this family milestone, or whichever value systems you've laid out, Andrea. I think it's natural for us to, and I think it's beneficial for us to kind of reassess that and to almost kind of reorganize ourselves. So maybe a task our mentors can work on in their mentoring relationship is setting these 10-year visions with their mentor and talking about small adjustments they can take today to help them start getting on track to getting there. Because, you know, if you think about like atomic habits, like it's not about someone who can do one massive thing randomly. It's about someone who can do small baby steps, but every single day.
Yeah, that's so good. And there are 2 things in particular that I really appreciate about that. I mean, think about a mentor, you know, asking the question, like, what's your 10-year vision? That's hard for a lot of people to answer. But to be able to, in a safe environment, a supportive environment, reflect on that question, you're building those visioning skills. That is good strategic, critically thinking to really force ourselves to go out that far and think about our life. I mean, because there's a lot of unknown, but we all can say, like, this is how old I will be. This is the people that are closest to me in my life. This is which phase of life they will be in. Yeah, and to take the time to shape that. Leaders shape the future. So building those muscles, such an important part of a mentoring relationship. And not letting people off the hook with a conversation I have had over and over and over with leaders throughout my career around this is this challenge of like, well, it's just not possible for me to go out that far. It's really, really hard. Yeah, it's hard, but let's not discount it because it's hard. Like, let's do the hard work of imagining the possibilities when there are no obstacles. That's the thing that's so exciting. But that's contrary to a way that a lot of leaders think. They think, what's the challenge? What's the obstacle I have to lead through or work through? When I go out beyond obstacles, it's hard for me to dream. It's dreaming.
That's fascinating, and it makes a ton of sense to me because we train these muscles in our brain. And as leaders, we've got these short-term obstacles that we need to like target, just kind of like what you stated. And we focus so hard on, and by the way, we become really strong at like knocking down short-term obstacles. New short-term obstacle, I know how to handle it because I'm really strong in it. I've been working out this muscle for so long. But when it comes to long-term vision, when it comes to being potentially vulnerable, when it comes to potentially putting ourselves in an area of being uncomfortable, that is where the juice is. Being uncomfortable is where the best relationships come from.
Yeah.
And in your mentoring relationship, if you are able and capable of being uncomfortable and leaning into that discomfort, you will have the greatest mentor relationship and greatest mentor experience. But if you're hedging, if you're not fully leaning into it, if you're not fully behind the goals, the aspirations that you set for yourself in your mentoring relationship, your likelihood of getting a lot out of it is not nearly as high.
Yes, and mentors, you hit it right on the head. Mentors being willing to sit in that discomfort and not letting them off the hook. I mean, think about the patience and the courage that's required to do that. That's a hard thing to do. So
yeah, how can we not let them off the hook? I think it's so natural because we don't want to offend anybody by just saying like, oh, you didn't hit your goal, or oh, you don't want to talk about your values right now. You're going through some stuff. Like, we can talk about it next time, and then next time comes around, it's like, oh, you're not feeling like talking about it. You don't know if it's as relevant to you. No worries. We can talk about it again another time. How can we get over that? Like, how can we challenge somebody respectfully to say like, no, we're going to set some values. We're going to work towards it because this is something that I think is important. This is something we should be doing.
Well, how badly do you want it? How important is the relationship to you? How committed are you to the growth of this individual? I mean, I think if the answer to those questions is yes, I'm committed, yes, it's important, then we were disciplined to take the time to do the hard stuff. And what's interesting, these initial conversations, how they so support the effectiveness and the efficiency of the relationship. Because once we've established the foundation of values and vision, we can keep going back to them. They provide a strength, that immovable wisdom to lead us through hard conversations.
Yeah, it makes you think why people who have gone through very difficult things are so tied to each other. You look at even military veterans. Yeah, when you've gone through a difficult thing with somebody else, there's a whole lot of camaraderie there. You were in your peak of vulnerability because you were truly uncomfortable. And you can feel that sense of connection to somebody else who can relate to that or maybe went through it with you. And that's powerful.
Yeah, there's trust in that.
Totally. So this is cool. This is a really fascinating topic, talking about values and visions in a mentoring relationship. Andrea, I think this has been really great wisdom and insight that you provided our audience today. And I think this is definitely something to think about and absolutely something that we can implement in our mentoring relationships. How can our audience learn more about you, Andrea?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me, Andrea Butcher. I also host a daily and weekly podcast called Being at Work. So if you're a podcast listener and want leadership nuggets, those are good nuggets. There's a daily dose of encouragement. That's a 2 to 3 minute episode we put out every day. And then every week there's a CEO or executive sharing a story about a time they led through a pivotal moment that taught them a lot about themselves as a leader.
Love that. Well, cool. Andrea, thank you so much for being here and sharing with us your wisdom and insight during this Lunch Learn. Everybody, thank you all for being here today. This was great. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. See you next time.